The mystery of how Polynesian communities came to settle some of the most isolated islands on Earth has long fascinated archaeologists, geneticists, and explorers alike. From the very first European encounters with these master navigators thriving on remote islands scattered across the Pacific, one question loomed. How did they get here? How could a population whose ancestry traces back to Southeast Asia, possibly as far north as Taiwan, manage to span a marine territory larger than all the world's continents combined? These weren't isolated drifts. Long before the compass or sextant, they sailed deliberately, constructing double-hulled canoes, charting invisible star maps, and planting new civilizations across more than 10 million square miles of ocean. Some once claimed they were lucky castaways. Others suggested lost continents or magical winds. But today, modern science tells a deeper story rooted in DNA, pottery shards, oral memory, and wind-carved sea routes. Because the Polynesians didn't just survive in the Pacific, they redefined what was humanly possible. Roots in Taiwan. The story of the Polynesians begins not on the open ocean, but in the highlands and river valleys of ancient Taiwan. Around 6,000 years ago, an agricultural revolution was quietly unfolding. Neolithic communities were domesticating rice, millet, pigs, and dogs. But the sea was rising. During the Holocene climate optimum, large portions of coastal Taiwan were swallowed by the ocean. Villages disappeared. Farmlands flooded. Families were forced to move. Instead of retreating inland, these displaced communities innovated. They built canoes. They learned to follow the ocean's rhythms, and they carried their farming knowledge, tools, and animals with them. This was the beginning of what scientists now call the Austronesian expansion, a vast human migration that would eventually stretch from Madagascar to Easter Island. Their first major stop was the Batanes Islands, a small archipelago north of the Philippines. Archaeologists have found pottery, pig bones, and obsidian tools here that bridge the gap between Taiwan and the wider Pacific. The Batanes were a launch pad, a proving ground for life at sea. From there, the migration fanned southward through the Philippines and into island Southeast Asia. Along the way, voyagers absorbed cultural and genetic threads from local populations, leaving behind languages and stone tools that still echo across the islands today. Even linguistics tells the story. Certain Proto-Oceanic numerals and kinship terms appear not only in Polynesia, but also in Micronesian and Formosan dialects. This suggests dual influences, east and west, north and south, weaving together into something new. What began as a climate-driven exodus became one of the most ambitious, multi-phase expansions in human history, guided not by kings or empires, but by farmers, navigators, and families, chasing stability across shifting tides. Lapita, architects of the Pacific. By the time Austronesian voyagers reached the Bismarck Archipelago, something extraordinary was taking shape. A new cultural engine, later known as the Lapita culture, was assembling the toolkit for true oceanic colonization. The Lapita weren't just travelers. They were ecological engineers. They transported entire agricultural systems, taro and breadfruit seedlings, yam cuttings, piglets, dogs, chickens, even soil microbes tucked inside coconut husks. They also left behind their signature, distinctive red pottery stamped with geometric designs. These ceramics, spread across 4,000 kilometers of ocean, were calling cards, proof of connection. Some motifs may have encoded navigation cues or clan identities. Others show a standardized thickness and size, suggesting design standards calibrated for storing food and water at sea. For decades, scholars debated whether Lapita culture was born in Asia or Melanesia, but in 2016, ancient DNA answered the question. The earliest Lapita burials, found in Vanuatu and Tonga, carried almost 100% Asian ancestry, with little to no Melanesian input. These voyagers had moved fast, skipping extensive contact and heading straight east. Later, Melanesian ancestry was woven back in through intermarriage on hub islands like Fiji and the Solomons. The result was a genetic blend that would form the backbone of Polynesia. The Lapita weren't reckless explorers. They were scientists. They measured, modeled, and mastered the Pacific. And with their sails, seeds, and stories, they built the scaffolding for the most widespread cultural footprint in oceanic history, the Polynesian genome. For years, scientists framed Polynesian ancestry as a simple blend, 70 to 80% Southeast Asian with 20 to 30% Melanesian. But genome-wide studies reveal it's far more complex. Small but consistent traces point back to northern China, and even Austroasiatic-speaking regions like Vietnam and Cambodia. The mixing was also gender-biased. Maternal DNA, inherited from mothers, is overwhelmingly Asian, tied to the Polynesian motif, B4A1A1. Before we open the ocean on this haunting riddle, what do you think? Were the Polynesians driven by chance winds, by exile, or were they master navigators rewriting what humans thought was possible? Drop your theory in the comments and subscribe, because here on Savage Past, we go deeper than history dares. Canoes, stars, and memory. Polynesian migration wasn't luck, it was design. At the heart of their expansion were double-hulled voyaging canoes, built from massive tree trunks or stitched planks lashed with coconut fiber, sealed with sap, and powered by the ingenious crab claw sail. These vessels rivaled modern sailboats in speed and stability. Reconstructions like the Hokulea have sailed at 10 to 15 knots, proving return voyages across the Pacific were not just possible, but repeatable. Their canoes were floating ecosystems. They carried pigs, chickens, taro plants, coconuts, and sealed gourds of water. Whole communities could survive for weeks at sea. But the greatest technology wasn't the canoe. It was the navigator's mind. Polynesian wayfinders memorized hundreds of stars and their rising positions. They read ocean swells, tracked clouds forming over islands, and watched seabirds at dawn and dusk. They carried all this in chants, hand gestures, and rituals. A living encyclopedia encoded in rhythm, not ink. Even today, traditional wayfinding remains astonishingly accurate. It wasn't just exploration. It was mastery of a world without borders. For centuries, one mystery loomed: the sweet potato. Known as kumara in Polynesia, it is native to South America, and yet it was flourishing across the Pacific before Europeans ever sailed these waters. In 2020, a nature study solved the riddle. DNA from Polynesians in the Marquesas Islands revealed Native American ancestry dating to around 1200 AD. The implication: Polynesians didn't just sail west, they sailed east, reaching the Americas and returning with crops, genes, and perhaps stories. This wasn't chance drift. It was one of the most ambitious round trips in human history, across the world's largest ocean, centuries before Columbus. But then, the voyaging stopped. After nearly 2,000 years of expansion, Polynesians ceased settling new islands around 1300 AD. Even reachable islands remained untouched. The reason may lie in the climate. The Little Ice Age brought shifting winds, cooler seas, and failing crops like breadfruit. Archaeology shows villages fortifying, populations shrinking, and warfare breaking out. Oral traditions preserve the memory. Hawaiian chants speak of the sea closing. Rapa Nui myths tell of skies turning away. Beneath the poetry is a record of hardship. Polynesians turned inward. Knowledge of navigation, once shared widely, became guarded or forgotten. By the time Europeans arrived, many islanders remembered ancestral voyages but no longer possessed the tools to repeat them. Even when voyaging ceased, Polynesians carried their history forward in language and story. Every Polynesian language, Hawaiian, Maori, Tahitian, Samoan, belongs to the Oceanic branch of Austronesian. Despite thousands of miles of separation, they remain closely related, proving how recent and rapid the migrations were. Language itself was a map. Chance preserved sailing routes, island positions, and seasonal conditions. Tested against GPS, some of these oral maps are more than 80% accurate. Legends recall canoes like Te Arawa and Hokulea, names that align with archaeological settlement dates. Myths blur with memory, but the core truths endure: migration, survival, and identity. Polynesians may not have written in stone, but they wrote in stars, syllables, and song. The story of the Polynesians is not about luck. It is about precision without metal, memory without maps, and navigation without borders. From Taiwan to Tonga, Samoa to South America, they didn't just move people, they moved language, crops, DNA, and meaning across the largest ocean on Earth. Their double-hulled canoes were laboratories, their chants were encyclopedias, their islands were connected not by roads but by routes written in the sky. While empires rose and fell on land, Polynesians carved out a civilization in motion, a legacy of exploration that redefined the boundaries of human possibility. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and join us for the next video where we uncover more untold stories from humanity's past. Each episode takes us deeper into the mysteries of history, connecting us to the people and events that shaped our world today.